I never imagined that returning home from a 12-month deployment in Afghanistan would lead to war on my own doorstep. Literally. My driveway had disappeared under a mountain of construction materials, heavy equipment, and orange cones, while a smug woman in a power suit informed me that I should have checked my emails about the HOA's new Community Enhancement Project. My name is Gary Yates, and I've always considered myself a reasonable man. 4 years in the Marines, followed by starting my own small IT security business, had taught me patience and strategy. But nothing prepared me for Karen Westfield, president of the Oak Ridge Estates Homeowners Association. "I'm sorry, but your driveway access will be restricted for approximately 4 weeks," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We're installing decorative cobblestone on all community access roads." The board voted unanimously. I looked down at the moving truck behind my car, filled with everything I owned. "I just drove 14 hours to move back into my house. Where exactly am I supposed to park?" "The community lot by the pool is available. It's only a quarter-mile walk." Karen adjusted her pearl necklace. "The assessment for the project will be $1,200 per household, due by the end of the month. Welcome home, Mr. Yates." As she walked away, I noticed something odd. The construction only blocked 3 driveways on the entire street, mine and my immediate neighbors. Everyone else had clear access to their homes. A coincidence, perhaps, but my years in cybersecurity had taught me to be suspicious of patterns. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a battle that would end with me owning the very ground beneath Karen's designer heels. The first week was inconvenient but manageable. I parked at the community lot and lugged my belongings a quarter-mile each way. My neighbors, the Jenkins family on one side and elderly Mrs. Peterson on the other, were in similar situations. None of us could access our driveways. "This is ridiculous," said Tom Jenkins, helping me carry a box. "They didn't even give us proper notice. Just an email buried in HOA announcements 3 months ago when you were deployed." "Why only our 3 houses?" I asked. Tom looked around nervously. "You didn't hear it from me, but all 3 of us voted against Karen in the last board election. We supported Janet Fisher instead." Janet Fisher. The name was vaguely familiar from neighborhood emails I'd skimmed before deployment. "Who's she?" "She was treasurer until she started questioning where some of the landscaping funds were going. Karen had her removed from the board. Janet moved away last month, put her house on the market for well below value. Karen's son-in-law bought it the same day." I stored that information away. In my business, connecting dots was everything. By week 2, the situation worsened. The construction crews seemed to be making progress everywhere except in front of our 3 houses. I tried speaking with the foreman, a burly man named Mike. "Look, buddy, I just follow the plans," he said, showing me a marked-up blueprint. "These 3 sections are scheduled for last. Board president's orders." That night, I was bringing my groceries from the community lot when I overheard voices behind the clubhouse. I recognized Karen's immediately. "Don't care if it takes another month. Those 3 properties need to feel the pressure." Karen's voice was clear in the evening air. "But we're almost finished with the rest of the neighborhood," a man responded. "The crew is asking questions. Double their pay for the delay. Use the contingency fund. Just make sure those 3 driveways stay blocked until after the 15th. I need those properties." I froze, grocery bags in hand. The 15th was 2 weeks away. What was happening on that date that made our accessibility so important to Karen? I slipped away before they noticed me, my mind racing. This wasn't random inconvenience, this was targeted. But why? The next morning, I called the county records office. As a property owner, I had the right to review HOA financial records. The clerk sounded bored until I mentioned Oak Ridge Estates. "Oak Ridge? Hold on." The line went silent for a moment. "Sir, are you aware there's a special assessment vote scheduled for the 15th of this month?" "No, what assessment?" "Something about property acquisition for a community entrance expansion. Significant funds involved. All homeowners should have been notified." I hadn't received any notification, and when I checked with Tom and Mrs. Peterson, either had they. That afternoon, I visited Mrs. Peterson, who had lived in Oak Ridge longer than anyone. At 82, she remembered when the development was still farmland. "Oh, those roads," she said, pouring me tea in delicate cups. "Most people don't know this, but when Oak Ridge was built, the developer kept the road deeds separate from the properties." "What does that mean?" I asked. "The roads themselves aren't part of the HOA common areas. They're still held by Oak Ridge Development Company." She sipped her tea. "The company went bankrupt years ago. Their assets were supposed to be transferred to the HOA, but I don't think they ever completed the paperwork." I nearly spilled my tea. "So who owns the roads now? That's the question, isn't it? I believe they've been in legal limbo for years." I thanked Mrs. Peterson and headed straight to the county records office. After hours of searching property records, I found what I was looking for. Oak Ridge Development Company had indeed gone bankrupt in 2005, and its assets had been liquidated at auction. The roads had been purchased by a holding company called Summit Investments for a mere $15,000. Another search revealed that Summit Investments had dissolved in 2011, and the road deeds had never been reassigned. They were effectively abandoned property. My heart raced as I drove to the office of a real estate attorney I'd hired for my home purchase years ago. James Barnes listened to my story with increasing interest. "Abandoned property can be claimed through adverse possession in this state, but that takes years," he said. "However, there is another option. You could petition the court to allow a public auction of the abandoned property. And I could bid on it? Anyone could. But given the unusual nature of this property, residential roads with no clear commercial value, you might be the only interested party." I left his office with a plan forming. James would file the petition immediately, requesting an expedited hearing due to the ongoing community disruption. When I got home that evening, I found a formal notice taped to my door. The HOA was holding an emergency meeting on the 15th to vote on acquiring properties for community enhancement. The minimum votes needed for approval was clearly stated, 2/3 of attending members. With our 3 houses unable to access our driveways, parking a quarter-mile away, would we really struggle through construction to attend a meeting about a vague community enhancement? Karen was counting on us not showing up. But why was she so desperate to keep us away? What was in this vote that required our absence? I needed to find out what was really happening before the 15th. And I needed to win that auction. The court moved with surprising speed, perhaps because my attorney emphasized my veteran status and the harassment angle. 5 days later, the abandoned road property was scheduled for public auction on the 14th, one day before the mysterious HOA vote. Meanwhile, I did some digging into Karen Westfield. Public records showed she owned a real estate company, Westfield Properties, that specialized in commercial development. Her company had purchased 3 commercial lots adjacent to our neighborhood in the past year. The pieces were starting to fit together, but I needed more. I reached out to Janet Fisher, the former treasurer who had moved away. She was initially reluctant to talk, but when I explained my situation, she agreed to meet at a coffee shop halfway between our towns. Janet was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with a no-nonsense demeanor that suggested her corporate background. "Karen forced me out," she said without preamble. "I found discrepancies in the books. Money moving from our reserves to a special projects account, then disappearing." "How much money?" "About $300,000 over 2 years. I whistled. Our HOA fees were substantial, but that was still a significant amount. "Did you report it?" Janet looked down at her coffee. "I tried. I went to the board first, thinking it was a mistake. Karen explained it away as prepayments for upcoming projects. When I kept pushing, asking for receipts, contracts, anything, suddenly there were complaints about my treasurer performance. Anonymous complaints. Let me guess, you were voted out." "Unanimously except for the 3 households who supported me. You, the Jenkins, and Mrs. Peterson." She twisted her coffee cup. "After that, I started getting code violation notices. Weakly. My roses were too tall. My mailbox was the wrong shade of brown. My garbage cans were visible from some impossible angle. So you moved? I had to. But here's what you should know. Janet leaned forward. Before I left, I copied some files. Karen has a plan to connect our neighborhood to those commercial properties she's buying. She wants to build a shopping center and use our neighborhood as the access point. Property values will tank for houses near the entrance, but skyrocket for those near the new amenities. Let me guess where our 3 houses are located. Janet nodded. Directly in the path of her planned entrance road. The final piece clicked into place. Karen needed our properties devalued so they'd be cheaper to acquire for her commercial development. The construction blocking our driveways was just the first step. Make our homes unlivable, force us to miss the vote, then push through her development plan. The vote on the 15th, I said. It's to approve using HOA funds to purchase our properties through eminent domain, isn't it? Janet's eyes widened. How did you know? Just connecting dots. But Karen made a crucial mistake. What's that? I smiled for the first time in weeks. She messed with someone who understands how to fight back. The morning of the auction arrived with perfect fall weather. I'd withdrawn my life savings and secured a loan against my business, giving me approximately $75,000 to bid on abandoned roads that had sold for $15,000 16 years ago. To my surprise, the auction room was nearly empty. Just me, my attorney, the auctioneer, and, my heart sank, Karen Westfield and a man in an expensive suit. Mr. Yates, she said, her smile tight. What a surprise to see you here. Just doing my civic duty, supporting local government functions, I replied. The auction began with the auctioneer explaining the unusual nature of the property. 29 residential road segments within Oak Ridge Estates, approximately 4.2 miles total, sold as a single lot. Opening bid is $20,000, he announced. I raised my paddle. 20,000. Karen's companion immediately countered. 25,000. The bidding escalated quickly. At $50,000, I could see Karen getting nervous, whispering frantically to her companion. At $70,000, sweat was visible on her forehead. 75,000, I said, reaching my absolute limit. Karen's companion hesitated, looking to her for direction. She nodded sharply. 80,000, he called. My heart sank. I was out of money and options. Then a voice from the back of the room. 100,000. We all turned to see Tom Jenkins standing there with his wife, and beside them, Mrs. Peterson in her Sunday best. We pooled our resources, Tom said to me with a wink. Figured you might need backup. The auctioneer looked to Karen's group. Do I hear 105,000? Karen's face had turned an alarming shade of red. Her companion shook his head. Sold for $100,000 to the gentleman in the back. As we left the auction room, Tom handed me a document. We formed a quick partnership. The roads are owned by all of us, with you as managing partner. Do whatever you need to do. That afternoon, I visited a sign company and ordered something special. That night I hardly slept. Morning brought the sound of construction equipment starting up. I dressed quickly and headed outside with my coffee to watch the show that was about to unfold. At precisely 7 a.m., a truck arrived carrying several large signs. Under my direction, workers installed them at every entrance to our neighborhood. The signs read, Private road access fee, $50 per vehicle. Residents exempt. Commercial construction vehicles, $500 per day. Towing enforced. Contact management for payment options. I'd also hired 2 off-duty police officers to monitor the entrances, equipped with a list of resident license plates I'd compiled over the past week. At 7:30, the construction crew arrived as usual. The foreman, Mike, stopped his truck at the entrance, staring at the sign in confusion. The off-duty officer approached his window. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I could see Mike's expression change from confusion to shock. He made a phone call, gesturing wildly. 20 minutes later, Karen's luxury SUV came screeching up to the entrance. She got out, designer heels sinking slightly into the morning damp grass, and marched toward the sign. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded when I approached. "Just a new neighborhood policy," I said pleasantly. "As the legal owner of these roads, I'm implementing an access fee structure. You can't do this. These are community roads. Actually, they're private property now. My property, along with my partner's. We have the deed right here." I held up a copy of the auction certificate. "Construction vehicles are subject to the commercial rate of $500 per day." "This is extortion." "No, this is property rights. Something I believe you're quite familiar with." Karen's face contorted with rage. "I'll sue you for this." "You're welcome to try. In the meantime, we'll be implementing a few changes to the neighborhood. First, all construction blocking residential driveways will be removed immediately. Second, we'll be attending the meeting tomorrow with some interesting questions about HOA finances." I handed her a thick envelope. "This is a copy of the financial analysis Janet Fisher compiled before she left. We've already forwarded it to the district attorney's office. Apparently, they're very interested in where that $300,000 went." Karen's face went from red to white in an instant. "You had no right. I had every right. As a homeowner and HOA member, financial transparency is guaranteed in our bylaws." I smiled. "Oh, and I've cancelled your special assessment. As road owners, we don't approve construction on our property." She took a step toward me, finger raised. "You think you've won, but you have no idea who you're dealing with. By this time tomorrow, you'll be lucky if you're not being questioned by fraud investigators." I interrupted. "Now you're welcome to enter the neighborhood if you pay the access fee. Cash or credit card accepted." For a moment, I thought she might explode. Instead, she turned abruptly, got back in her SUV, and peeled away, nearly hitting a mailbox in her haste. I turned to Mike the foreman, who had been watching the exchange with wide eyes. "So, are you paying the fee, or would you like to remove your equipment from my property?" The emergency meeting on the 15th was unlike any HOA gathering I'd ever attended. Nearly every household was represented, buzzing with rumors about the new road signs and Karen's conspicuous absence. Just as the vice president was about to start the meeting, the doors at the back of the community center burst open. 2 police officers and a man in a suit entered. "I'm Detective Wilson from the Economic Crimes Unit," the suited man announced. "We're looking for Karen Westfield." The vice president, a nervous man named Doug, cleared his throat. "She called in sick today." "What's this about?" "We have a warrant for her arrest on charges of embezzlement, fraud, and misappropriation of funds." The room erupted in chaos. I caught Tom's eye across the crowd, and he gave me a subtle thumbs up. Detective Wilson continued once the noise died down. "We'd like to speak with anyone who has information about HOA finances or unusual construction projects in the neighborhood." Janet Fisher, who had returned for the meeting at my invitation, stood up. "I have extensive documentation, Detective. I was the treasurer until last year." As Janet walked forward with her files, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Mrs. Peterson stood there with a twinkle in her eye. "Well played, young man," she said quietly. "Your parents would be proud." My parents had been the original owners of my house, and had fought their own battles with previous HOA regimes. The thought that they would approve warmed me more than I expected. "What happens now?" I asked the group as we gathered outside after the meeting adjourned. "Karen's being arrested at her home," Janet reported, returning from a conversation with the detective. "They found evidence she was planning to use HOA funds to purchase our 3 properties through a shell company, then sell them to her real estate company at below-market rates for the commercial development." "So what about our roads?" Tom asked. "Are we really charging people $50 to visit the neighborhood?" I laughed. "No, that was just to make a point. I propose we form a proper road association, separate from the HOA, with transparent finances and fair policies." "And the toll booths?" Mrs. Peterson asked with a smile. Those come down tomorrow. But the construction equipment blocking our driveways is already gone. Amazing how quickly they moved once it was costing $500 a day. 6 months later, Oak Ridge Estates had transformed. Karen Westfield had pleaded guilty to multiple felony counts and was serving time in a minimum security prison. Her commercial development plans had collapsed, and the properties she'd purchased were sold at auction. Our new road association worked alongside a reformed HOA board, with Janet Fisher reinstated as treasurer. The construction project was completed properly, with beautiful cobblestone roads that actually improved our property values. As for me, I'd become something of a neighborhood legend. The Marine who came home from war and defeated the HOA tyrant by buying the road out from under her. I've even been asked to run for the HOA board, though I politely declined. My small IT security business is thriving, and I've found I prefer solving problems from the outside. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I sit on my front porch and look at the road that caused so much trouble. It's just asphalt and stone, but it taught me something important. Even the ground beneath our feet isn't set in stone. With enough determination and creativity, you can change the path you're on, sometimes literally. Mrs. Peterson joins me occasionally, sharing stories of neighborhood battles from decades past. You know what I like about you, Gary? She said to me recently. You fight fair, but you fight to win. I'll take that as a compliment. After all, I didn't ask for war on my doorstep, but when it came, I made sure I was the one collecting the tolls.